Before roads, before writing, before kings carved names into stone, there were children. Their names are gone, their voices lost, but their footprints pressed deep into the soil of forgotten valleys remain. Let us follow them now. Close your eyes and drift with me. 10,000 years into the past, the air is still, heavy with the warmth of a dying day. You are standing near a river, not yet called anything. There is no map, no borders, no nations, only trees, wind, and firelight. Behind the smoke of a hearth dug into the dirt, a child peers out. Their hair is tangled with leaves, and their eyes catch the last amber light, not with fear, but with the wild curiosity of someone whose world is still a secret. Their world was not small, but it was silent. There were no screens, no bedtime stories read from pages, only the low hum of the earth and the tales told by the oldest voices. At dusk, these children, forgotten by name but not by spirit, did not play with plastic. Their toys were the bones of birds, the hollow reeds of river grass, the soft fur of a fox cub that did not flee when held gently. The idea of childhood, as we know it, had not been born. There was no school, no written alphabet, no ticking of clocks, and yet there was joy. A small boy, bare feet dusted with ash, races through the tall grass, chasing the shadow of a bird. His laugh, brief and startled, rises like smoke. A girl, her arms smeared with ochre, presses her fingers to the wall of a cave. She leaves behind a handprint, and in doing so says, "I was here." But she will not know what it means to be called a child the way we do now. To her, life is a flowing river, no age, no title, just being dot as night falls. The wind carries the scent of wood smoke and wet stone. The elders gather near the fire, their backs bent like the branches of the pine. Children listen not with boredom, but with reverence, because each tale carries survival. A story of the beast that moves only when you forget it. A warning of the sky fire that comes with no sound. And the tale of the first time someone carved a flute from bone and made the wolves pause to listen. These were not just stories. They were maps made from memory. And for a child, they were the threads that stitched the world together. During the day, they followed mothers to rivers, watched hands scrape hides, and learned not through rules, but rhythm. The rhythm of walking, watching, mimicking dot, and when play came, it was not separate from life. It was life. To play was to learn. To throw a stone was to understand weight. To stack sticks was to glimpse shelter. To watch an ant carry food was to feel the hush of wonder dot at night. They curled beside siblings, not on mattresses, but on furs warmed by breath and time. Above them, the stars were not yet catalogued. They were stories, two hunters, birds, and old fires frozen in the sky. A child, 10,000 years ago, had never heard the word childhood, but they lived it fully, quietly, and close to the pulse of the earth. The sun rises slowly on a world still half asleep. There are no rooster calls, no alarms, only the wind in the branches, the slow creak of fire-cooled wood, and the quiet stirrings of those who have always known to wake with the light. A child stretches beneath a fur pelt, blinks toward the opening of the hut. Outside, the ground is still damp from last night's rain. Tiny mushrooms gleam near the roots of a tree, and the air smells of smoke and green things. The day has begun on with it. The lessons, not lessons written on a board, nor recited from a book. There is no classroom here. The earth itself is the teacher, and the child, the apprentice of the wild. A girl crouches beside her grandmother, watching her thread sinew through bone. With slow, careful fingers, the old woman teaches without speaking. The girl watches every motion, how the thread bites, how the bone yields. To live was to learn. To learn was to observe. And to observe was a matter of life. Elsewhere, a boy follows his father into the trees. The man does not explain what to do. He simply moves with stillness, then speed, then silence again. The child mimics his footsteps, steps where he steps. Each cracked twig, each misplaced rock, each mistakes a lesson without punishment. A lesson written in the soft trail of the forest floor, and above them all, the sky teaches to its moods shift with seasons, and the children learn its rhythm when the birds leave, when the clouds press low, when the air carries the smell of snow long before it falls. There were stories for these things, but more than that, there were gestures, signs, and songs. A mother claps her hands twice and hums a low tune, a signal to return. An elder draws a spiral in the sand, a warning of the water serpent. A child repeats the gestures, not knowing. Yet why but knowing that knowing is important. They learned through play. But play was never separate from the world. A child learning to balance on a log across the river was not only playing, they were learning how not to fall when danger called for flight. They watched the animals, too. A young boy watches a wolf crouch low, paw forward, nose tilted to the wind. Later, he mimics the posture as he sneaks up on his younger brother. They both fall laughing, but the lesson sinks in. How to move like the world expects you to. There is no boredom, there is only being. Only the soft echo of knowledge passed hand to hand, step to step, glance to glance. Some children carry baskets larger than themselves, gathering roots. Some sit near the edge of the village, shaping mud into tiny figures, foxes, deer, birds. Some rest in trees, still and silent, watching the world from above. But always they are learning how to listen to the forest and hear warning in the wind, how to know the color of a safe berry, how to remember the path of stars that always leads home. And when the elders speak, their words are slow, so slow that a single sentence feels like a mountain. But children remember them, word for word, as if engraved into stone, because these were the only lessons that mattered. Not how to make a mark on a page, but how to mark the world with your own survival. Asterisk time. To a child 10,000 years ago was not counted in numbers. There were no birthdays, no candles, no calendars to hang on a wall, but change still came soft as smoke, firm as stone. And with it came the quiet rituals that marked a child's journey into the wide, uncertain world of adulthood. It began not with words, but with silence. A kind of silence that followed a moment of bravery, a first hunt, a first fire lit with no help, a first scar earned and worn without a cry. The elders would not celebrate with noise. They would simply notice. They would see the child not as smaller, but as beginning. In one village, when a child caught their first fish, they were given a single feather, not to wear, not to boast, but to place above the hearth, where smoke would carry the scent of that moment to the stars. In another, when a girl bled for the first time, the women gathered not in fear or shame, but in honor. They painted a red line down her forehead and whispered the names of the mothers who came before. To grow up was not to be told what to do. It was to be watched closely, carefully and quietly measured. A boy might be given a single night in the woods, No torch, no food, just the stars, the trees, and the echo of everything he had been taught. Not a test. A conversation between him and the world, and in the morning, if he returned, he would not be asked what he saw, only if he understood. Sometimes, growth was marked by a song. A child would stand before their family and sing not a melody, but a memory of a river crossed, of an animal seen, of fear or joy or silence. The song would not be judged, only remembered, and some were given a new name. Not all at once, and not always, but when the time came, when the child had lived something unrepeatable, a name would emerge, soft as breath, and settle like dust on skin. The name might mean Stonewalker, or Listens Long, or Thunder Behind Eyes. No one would say where it came from, only that it was always there, waiting to be known. These rituals were not about rules. They were not rites to be passed or failed. They were whispers, woven through the quiet fabric of a life slowly changing shape. Even the smallest gestures had meaning. A girl allowed to carve her own flint. A boy invited to sit in silence beside the old men. A child trusted to carry fire from one hut to another. These were not games. They were doors, and once opened, they were not closed again. Not all children passed through at the same time. Some stayed young longer, watched from the edge of the circle. Others stepped forward early, drawn by something quiet and ancient inside them. But in every village, in every hidden valley, one thing was true. Growing up was not something that happened to you. It was something you noticed, slowly, like the moon growing full, and when the time came, the child would no longer be called a child. They would not be told they had grown. They would feel it, like moss, thick beneath bare feet, like breath on a cold morning, like the weight of a name carried softly on the wind. No bells rang, no ceremonies declared it, and no one ever said, "You are no longer a child." Because the end of childhood, 10,000 years ago, did not arrive with noise. It arrived like mist over a field, like footprints fading into harder ground. One day, you awoke and did what needed doing, not because someone told you, but because it was time. The boy who once chased lizards now crouched with the hunters. The girl who once wove flowers into her hair now braided the fur of her sister's child. There was no applause, no badge, no golden moment, just the soft shift of presence, of standing where you once only watched. The games became tasks, the toys became tools, the stories you were told became the ones you told others. Some were still young in years, but they bore fire on their shoulders. They bore memory in their eyes. They learned to gather silence the way one gathers seeds, with care, with stillness, with knowing hands. The elders saw it, not with words, but with the way they stepped back, just enough for the younger ones to step forward. And yet, even as they stepped into adulthood, they carried pieces of childhood with them, a carved pebble hidden in a pouch, a bird feather tied into the lining of their clothes, a song hummed only when alone under stars. Because in those ancient days, childhood did not end like a door closing. It folded inward, quiet as a sleeping deer, into the larger shape of life. The child became the hunter, the listener, the weaver of baskets, the keeper of flame, but they remained in a quiet corner of their soul. The one who once danced with shadows and laughed at birds. Some grew old quickly. Hard winters took the softness from their cheeks. Long migrations stiffened their joints before their time. Others lived long, long lives and still remembered the scent of summer moss beneath small feet. One woman, wrinkled and silent, kept a riverstone in her satchel. She said nothing of it, but when she passed, her granddaughter found it wrapped in fox fur and held it close, though she didn't know why. Another man, long blind, could still whistle the call he once used to summon his sister to chase fireflies in the dusk. These fragments weren't souvenirs, they were echoes, not lost, but softened, even as they grew. Those who had once been children of the old world never stopped being a part of its song. They became the ones who watched the next children begin, who waited for the first fish, who marked the first fish, who marked the first scar, who whispered the first new names. And so, childhood never really ended. It only stepped aside, made room, listened, because in those days, before roads, before kings, before written names, childhood was not a chapter. It was a thread, woven quietly into every season of life. And even as the fire burned low, and the body became tired, the thread remained soft, strong, timeless. So tonight, as you drift into your own dreams, remember that the children of long ago are still with us, in the way we tell stories, in the way we teach by showing, and in the quiet ways we remember where we began. If you want to hear more about the forgotten lives that once filled this earth, the mothers, the wanderers, the watchers of stars, join me in our next story, The Day the Sky Had No Moon, where we'll journey even deeper into the forgotten skies of our earliest ancestors. Until then, sleep gently. The past is still with you.